Chapter 4. The Atlantic Ocean, west of Puerto Rico, January 1666. Bernardo stood on deck of the large galleon and looked out over a playful ocean. The salt air rushed at his face and ruffled his thick hair, still mostly black. Feeling exhilarated, Bernardo took a deep breath and exhaled, as if exercising his demons. There was a certain freedom that flowed through his veins. It was almost as if, in the Caribbean, he could leave his life and the world he came from behind him. Here, he could be someone else. From his very first trip 14 years ago with his children in Arbol, Bernardo had felt a calling. Each trip he made thereafter to ensure the plantation was running smoothly and at its most efficient, or so Bernardo told himself, only served to solidify the desire he had to one day retire to the island. Instinctively, he knew there was something about the mixture of wind flow and ocean currents that was adventurous, intoxicating. Even the element of danger on the island thrilled and excited him in ways that his quiet and otherwise dull life in Spain did not. Whether it was truly the island, the Caribbean, or perhaps the distance from Mother Spain, it didn't matter. Bernardo knew only he liked the feeling that came over him. He felt exhilarated, young. Here he could forget he was nearly 50 and just enjoy the feeling of being untethered, as if he had no responsibilities, cares, or worries in the world. There were no pressures, no duties, no obligations. They all simply melted away in the Caribbean. Of course, the fact that the water was an inviting greenish blue, the sea air warm and balmy, the sun hot and prickly on his skin, might also have had something to do with it. Oddly, there was also a sense of belonging.
Curious how I never really felt out of sorts in my own home until I came here. But these business trips will soon have to end.
He would have to make a decision about the rest of his life, and it would not be easy. Would he be able to leave Adelina? They had been married for so long. So much had transpired between them. They had a history together. 2 handsome sons. Was a marriage still a marriage if one had stopped loving the other? Had they ever truly loved at all? Adelina hadn't been the warmest woman in the world, even at the best of times. At least not with him. Bernardo had his suspicions she might have been with someone else since his first trip to the island. But he also was not without sin.
What then? An annulment? A separation?
But those things had a way of interfering with business. There was always someone who didn't understand or chose to pass judgment. If people didn't share his views, they would take their business elsewhere. Hadn't his support of Adelina's views interfered with business before? It was only when he had gone against his wife's wishes, that they not get involved in slavery, that the business had boomed and become profitable once more. In fact, if it hadn't been for the considerable sum of money Raul had floated in his honor, Bernardo and his family might not have survived. He shuddered to think where they might be now, and found it strange the very thing that saved his family from hunger, kept them clothed, and fixed the roof over their heads, was the very thing that drove Bernardo and Adelina further apart. Despite that rift, Bernardo was still grateful to Raul. No matter how much of a monster he could sometimes be, he had his moments, especially when they were together. Bernardo pushed Raul out of his mind, praying Adelina never found out about the loan, the arrangements, or the things he and Raul did together. Part of the conditions that left him satisfied but ashamed.
No, best that she never know.
He had tried on several occasions to persuade Adelina to join him in La Española, just to see what she thought of the island. But Adelina was not willing to leave Spain. She was adamant that travel was for men only and refused to sail on a ship where dirty, smelly, foul-mouthed sailors with no manners scurried about like monkeys in trees. Still, he had to do something. He was growing weary. The voyages took a long time and wore him down. Bernardo fantasized about year-round life on the island. His sons were more than ready to handle the company on their own. Fernando was a wizard with numbers and ledgers, and Alonso was special. He was, it seemed, the heart of Casa Rodrigo importers. Anyone who met with Alonso liked and trusted him immediately. The boy looked people in the eye, never flinched, and most importantly, treated them like they were his only clients.
The boy. Hardly a boy. He's a full-grown man now.
Bernardo was amazed that time had gone by so quickly. He was proud of Alonso, but it was a pity Fernando had chosen to stay in Spain instead of coming to the island. He would have preferred Alonso stay at home with his mother, but perhaps it was best that way. Surely Alonso would win the slaves over and work them more fairly and justly than Fernando would have. Bernardo just hoped it wouldn't cost Casa Rodrigo in the end. Sometimes Alonso gave away too much to keep their patrons happy. Bernardo turned around suddenly.
Ah, there you are.
Good morning, Father.
Alonso rubbed his eyes. His incredibly thick, black, and wavy hair curled from the salty ocean breeze, and there was stubble on his face. He tucked the billowy, wrinkled white shirt into his coarse brown pants. He had abandoned conventional Spanish dress at the start of their trip and made every attempt to fit in among the sailors. They had taken to him as if he were one of their own. Bernardo looked into his son's piercing blue eyes. The twins had inherited their mother's eyes, and they were identical in appearance. But any similarities between them ended with their looks.
You're up late this morning, but then you came to bed late last night. Where did you go?
I couldn't sleep, so I went for a walk on deck. Looked at the stars for a while. So, did I miss that slop they called breakfast?
You did.
And I'm just heartbroken about it. But I am hungry. And I'll be quite happy not to hear that infernal flute anytime soon.
Well, the flute can't be helped. The musician is here to motivate the men and help improve morale. As for food, if you can hold out a few more hours, we'll probably make landfall sometime this afternoon.
Really? I can't believe we're almost there. The last time was, 10, 11 years ago?
14.
14? Are you sure?
You and your brother were barely 11. We left a few days after your birthday party.
That was another person ago. I barely remember. And what I do remember seems like it was so long ago. I wonder if it ever happened at all.
You might feel that way now, but wait until you're almost 50, like your old man.
I don't understand.
The things I did last year, last month, last week even, they're all but forgotten. I have to fight to remember them. But the things I did as a child, in my youth, even in my 20s, they're more alive in my mind than any other memories.
Then, I guess I'm just going to have to find a way to not get old.
Who do you think you are? Ponce de Leon in search of the fountain of youth?
Pardon me.
Father and son turned and looked down at the ship's musician with his wooden flute. He was a boy of mixed race and indeterminate age. His feet were filthy, his clothes disheveled, and his hair was matted as if he had not washed in weeks.
Good morning, musician. Are you here to play us a song?
Oh no, sir. I'm here because Tusino sent me.
The boy half turned and pointed with his flute. Bernardo and Alonso followed the boy's arm to the open door a few feet away. Normally sour, the bald and burly man with big arms, tattoos, and hoops in his ears and nose grinned like a little girl and waved at Alonso. Bernardo raised a curious eyebrow, looking from the ship's cook to Alonso.
Tusino said to tell you he was making a special breakfast. But just for you, Senor Alonso. He's using the last of his eggs. Seeing as how this is the last day of your voyage and all.
Thank you. Tell him I'll be right there.
What was that all about?
Oh, I'm sure it was nothing. You know how some of these sailors are.
Right. Well, in that case, best not leave Tocino waiting. Seeing as how it's a special breakfast, just for you and all.
Alonso shrugged with a grin and, stomach growling, jogged the length of the ship toward the still smiling and waiting cook. He clapped Tocino on the shoulder and the big man grinned more widely. Bernardo watched and wondered if there was more there than just friendship. But then he remembered how easily Alonso pulled people into conversation. The boy seemed to be able to make friends no matter where he went. Bernardo turned back toward the horizon, anxious to be on land again, walking about their property. Tomorrow he would worry about making his decision. For now he would simply enjoy the view, the wind, and the thought that later he and Raul would meet at El Puerco Sucio, the dirty pig, and share a bottle of rum. It was the only way Bernardo could endure the incomprehensibly pleasurable, yet remarkably embarrassing things they did together.
But after tonight, the De Rodrigo family will finally be free of all debt to Raul Ignacio Velasco.